Hello, this is Angela Anderson. Thanks for joining me for this acrylic painting tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to paint a campfire with an Aurora Borealis sky. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think. And I'll show you step by step how to do it from start to finish tonight. Got my husband Mark with me.
Hey there, everybody.
He's been in chat for our live show, so if you have questions while I'm painting, you can ask those and I'll try to answer them. Let's get started. All right, so I'm going to be using a 9 by 12 inch canvas panel. This is the Fredrix Pro Series Belgian linen canvas board, and I haven't done anything to it. It's already comes pre-prepared for paint, so I've just kind of lightly sketched on here, kind of just to give myself a general idea of where our horizon line is, and that is with a watercolor pencil. So our horizon line is right about just below the halfway mark. So here's our halfway mark. So the sides of the trees are up in here, and then it comes down to just above the third. So right here, it just kind of dips down just a little bit right there. And that's really all you're going to need to start with. You also may want to do kind of a semicircle here to know where our fire is going to be. If you need the traceable for this, it will be available on my Patreon page. So after the show, you can check that out. I will have the traceable done. I usually do it from the finished painting. So I'll have it done either tonight or tomorrow, and it'll be up there for you guys to use. All right, let's go over our brushes really quick. I've got a number 12 Bright, a number 6 Filbert, and a 1-inch oval mop, and a number 2 Aspen. Okay, I've got all the large brushes. I'm not sure exactly which ones I'm going to need. I'm going to try a couple of different techniques on this, probably blending wet into wet, possibly using the mop to sort of aid some of that blending, either the mop or this one, probably to aid the blending, and using these two to kind of do some of the more detailed things, because there are some little smaller areas in the night sky that we'll be needing those larger brushes for. We'll also probably be using this large brush for some of the details down in here. Now we're also going to need some sort of a stiff bristled brush for some texture, and for some blending. So I'm using the Deerfoot Stippler 5/8 inch, 1/4 inch, and then I've also got a 1/4 inch blender. So if you've got any of these brushes, you probably find them helpful. I've also going to need a fan brush for our pine trees and for some of our splattering. And then I've got a 1/4 inch and a 3/8 inch angle brush, and a number 4 and a number 1 round brush for some of the details, mostly in the fire. And these are all Princeton brushes. They're our brush sponsor. Fredrix is our canvas sponsor. They're awesome. And if you want links down in the description, I've got links to all these products and where you can buy them. Also, you're going to probably want a toothbrush, and I don't have a toothbrush sponsor, so there you go. Just a plain old toothbrush.
Even if you're not painting, you're going to want a toothbrush.
That's true. But you probably don't want to use the same one for this as you do on your teeth.
Probably not.
Yeah,
no.
Probably not. Okay, let me go over the colors. I've got burnt. Actually, this is not a burnt. It's carbon black, burnt umber, quinacridone burnt orange, yellow, Indian yellow hue, cadmium yellow light, cadmium red light, phthalo blue green shade, phthalo green blue shade, and then this is zinc white and titanium white. I put out the fluid zinc white. Thinking I might use that in the sky. I'm not sure though. And then I've got some glazing medium also to help us with some glazing and things that we might need it for. It'll also help with blending. All right, let's get going here.
Your mic has done a couple weird things, so I'm going to turn you off and unplug and replug real quick. So.
All right, hopefully that fixed it. We'll see. Mark just trying to do. It didn't fix it. Okay. Better? Is that better? Maybe?
I think so.
Okay. Let's get going. Sorry. Sorry about that. Technical issues. Okay. I'm glad I have you actually listening to the show, because I've done shows before where I had like echoing in the, like halfway through the show, my co-host said, hey, people are saying they're seeing, hearing echo. They can't hear you. I'm like, great. Okay. So I'm going to spray. I'm going to just start by spraying the canvas. It can be a helpful way to kind of get some moisture on the board and aid the paint going on there smoothly. So just a little spritz is all you need. You don't want to douse it with water. I'm also going to get a little bit of water on my brush and brush that off. And then we are going to, I'm going to start with the large flat. This is the, I say flat, it's a bright. Flat would be a little bit longer than this. And let's go ahead and start on the sky here. So I'm going to work from back to front. Obviously our sky is farthest back. So we'll start with the black. And I'm going to use that in the upper corners, maybe add just a little bit of blue. And we're going to use it up in here, and I'm going to come down about halfway, and I'm going to streak it this way because our Aurora Borealis, boy, that's a hard word to say. Aurora Borealis is streaked in up and down kind of motion. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of do it in like that, and maybe it'll give me kind of a head start on it. Picking up a little bit of water. When I pick up water, I'm just kind of dipping the corner of the brush in there. I don't need a whole lot of water, and I might even grab a little bit of glazy medium. I'm going to push my mic away because it's going to get hit by my brush there. And I'm going to go down just a little bit farther. On this side, you can really see the blue over here where the canvas is peeking through. We're probably going to need to put 2 coats on here, I'm thinking. So I'm going to get a little bit of white and a little bit more of that phthalo blue. Look how pretty that color is. And I'm going to use this color kind of where I'm seeing some of that Aurora Borealis, maybe even a little bit of the green. But I printed it out, and you can see how, well, I don't know if you can see, this whole area here is all blue. So this whole area, so we're kind of going to fill in this area with blue, leave these kind of corners here black. So that's the idea. And I'm just going to do this in up and down motion. As I go down toward the bottom, it's going to get a little bit lighter, a little bit more green. But this undercoat, I'm going to go ahead and do kind of dark. And there was a couple different ways I could do it, but I think this will be the easiest way. We'll see. I've only painted an Aurora Borealis one other time, and I didn't love it. So we're going to try to do better this time. That's my goal. Art goals. What?
As Master Yoda said, there is no try.
Okay.
There is a do or do not.
Okay. Well, then we're going to do it.
All right. See, that's the spirit.
Okay. So here you can see I've got quite a bit more of the white down here. I still want to keep it fairly dark though. We're going to put the lighter colors on top. This is really pretty color. This is just black, phthalo blue, and that little bit of the green. And I'm going down. You can see where this green comes down in between the trees. So I'm actually covering all of this area that the trees are going to be in, and coming all the way down to where the lowest part of those trees is, and which is pretty low down here. And I've also found a couple other pictures of some fires to kind of reference. So you can see this one, it's kind of a little bit higher. So I think I'm going to bring this, the fire up just a little bit more maybe. And then I found this one that's got a little bit more detail on the inside of the logs. So I may use that also. And we're definitely going to be adding some of these sparks also, because I really like that look. So we'll be editing a little bit, and don't feel like you have to just find the perfect paint picture. Very rarely do I find a picture that I'm like, that's the one, you know, it's perfect as is. You can always kind of edit it and put your own spin on it if you've got something that you'd like to add to it. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to let that dry completely before we do anything else. So while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of lightly clean out my brush. It doesn't have to be perfectly clean. And get some of my black. I'm going to come down here. And I'm going to go around the sides here and also kind of up to the sky a little bit. And I'm just going to, you see where they meet here? I'm going to feather that edge out just a little bit so that it doesn't have a hard edge that I'm going to have to fight to cover later. I'm going to get a little bit of glazing medium. That'll just help me. I'm just going to do that while that blue is still wet. It'll kind of accept the paint a little bit better if I do it right now. I'll be going back over this with the green in the opposite direction. So this will probably be covered up, but at least it'll kind of help it not to have a hard edge there. You never really want to do that, especially when you're going to be adding more layers. You never want to have like a really solid line there unless you know it's like a separate object that you're really wanting to define that edge, then you would do that. But in this case, this edge is going to be kind of blended out a little bit. We're going to have this black over the top, and it'll just help it later not to have a solid line there. Okay, then I'm going to go around my fire, and I said I kind of did a perimeter here. There's an area here where the fire is a little bit red. A little bit of that red kind of comes out. So I'm just going to kind of lightly brush out that edge a little bit, and then continue to, oh, I've got a frog in my throat today. Continue to brush out around. Okay. Around it with the black there. And this black against this night sky is going to really pop. That's why we added a little bit of blue up there, just so that it's a little bit different value, a little bit darker, deeper down here. I'm going to get a little bit of brown and a little bit of my cadmium red and some burnt orange. So I'm just going to kind of make a dark brown red, a little bit more red. There we go. And I'm going to go around here and try to catch that while it's a little bit wet and blend that edge out. If it's not wet, that's fine. You can just do this and we'll blend it out later. Adding more. Sorry, I've had this weird cough. I swear it's not COVID. It did kind of freak me out for a few days, but I don't have any fever, so I think it's just allergy, but it's really bothering me. Okay, so here you need to know that. Sorry. TMI. Well, I guess if I'm coughing during the whole show, you're probably gonna figure it out.
Something suspicious.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So as I get closer to the fire, I'm going to get a little bit more of my brighter red here. And we're definitely going to brighten up this area, but we're starting pretty dark to begin with. And then we'll come back in and add some brighter reds in here, but this will give us a good base and a good blend for, it's really very subtle actually, but there are some shadow areas in here that we're working with, so we want to start out fairly dark so we have shadows, and then we'll add the lighter colors in there later. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and kind of base in my rocks too, just a little bit. So I've got a few little rock shapes. This is where I decided to alter our photograph just a little bit, because our rocks in our photograph actually kind of came down here. They didn't make it like a really symmetrical circle, and I just kind of wanted it to look a little neater. So I'm going to bring this out and down a little bit here. So Cashmere, well, she was coming over here. Cashmere is in for a rude awakening. We're getting a puppy. At the end of the month. Oh, here he is. Look at that face. Oh my gosh, I can't stand it. So stinking cute. It's gonna be awesome. Is it Schnoodle? No, not Schnoodle. That Schnoodle was our other dog. It is a Cavapoo. King Charles Cavalier and Poodle mix. So yeah. It'll be awesome. I've got a good friend that has one also. She says they're a great breed, so I'm looking forward to it. It's been 2 years since our other dog passed, so I'm ready. Told Mark it's like the first time that I've been able to look at dog pictures without crying. So I think I'm ready. We'll see.
I haven't had that problem.
Mark hasn't had that problem. No, he pretty much had to be talked into doing it. So was not his idea.
I knew it was inevitable when the fence went in.
In the backyard, yeah.
I could read the tea leaves there.
It was dual. It was for the deer and the dog.
Right.
Okay, so there we go. So I kind of blended a little bit of that reddish color around here, and I left this middle sort of open. We're going to fill that in later. Let me see if this is dry enough. I think it's dry enough. You want to really be careful when you're layering with acrylics not to layer onto a layer that, not to paint onto a layer with fresh wet paint, especially if it's very watery, a layer that's drying or partially dry. It will lift the color right off to the bare canvas. And then you will have to wait to let that dry. It will not accept any paint at that point. Once the paint has been lifted, it won't accept any new paint until it's completely dry, and then you can lay paint down again. But it's a really frustrating process, and I think a lot of beginners do it, not realizing that they really need to be careful not to paint onto wet acrylics or drying acrylics. They get real sticky when they're drying, and so they'll just stick right to your canvas, okay, or right to your brush and come right off your canvas. Okay, I think that's good enough. So I think I'm safe to go ahead and start. I think I'm gonna try it with this brush first. We'll see. I think if we can do it with this brush, it'll be way easier because it's a larger brush. It will cover a lot more ground. So I'm just dipping it a little bit into the water, wiping off the extra moisture. You can actually use a paper towel to pull off a little bit of moisture if you need to. But I don't hardly ever dunk my brush in there when I'm picking up water, because then it drips all over everything and it gets too wet. You don't want it super drippy wet, because then you can't control the amount that's going onto your canvas. All right, so just a little bit of water there. Wipe it off on the side of your thing, and then maybe dab it on a paper towel once or twice.
Before we go too far, somebody asked if hold on, I lost the question. If it starts too dry, can you wet it with water, or do you have to wait for it to fully dry?
You can, if your paint is still wet. So it depends on how wet your paint is. If your paint is starting to dry or kind of get thick, I would not add water to it because it's just going to start to lift and do weird things. And some of it might be dry over here and this part might be wet, and then you'll end up with this wet puddle that'll lift off your canvas. So it's better just to, and I actually at this point I could spray it with a little bit of water to help me for this next layer. It's fine to spray it on top of dry paint, but I think I may actually do that just a little bit. And just kind of brush that in. Okay. And I'm going pretty bright with this color. I may add just a slight bit of blue and some white. Ooh, that's pretty. But this is fairly bright in the sky. And if I need to, I can always go back over it with black. So I'm going to go ahead and start down here low where I know it's going to be the brightest, and start pulling it up. And then I need to get some of this original color that we had. So that kind of blue gray, I should have done that before we started. A little bit of blue gray and white. Well, blue and black. This color here that we were using, because we're blending into that, right? So we need to have some of that to blend into. So I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of that and go in the opposite direction here.
Okay, so the puppy's name right now is Scrat, but that's you're going to call him Fitz.
Fitz.
And that is after some hunky dude.
Fitzwilliam Darcy. I know. I thought about it later. I was like, is it weird that I'm naming him after my book boyfriend?
Fitzwilliam Darcy. Yeah.
Probably is a little bit. Sorry, Mark. But
yeah, notice you didn't name him after me. I understand. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This is sort of working. It's not exactly going on as smoothly as I'd hoped. And then I'm going to get in here and get some of this darker color. Maybe a little bit more of the black because it's more black up in here. Come down. Blend back through. Really, it's just a matter of blending. So it's not, there's no real science to this, I don't think. I mean, I think there's probably, I don't know. I've seen some people just like put paint on here and do like 2 brush strokes and get it perfect for the, and I'm like, I've tried that and it didn't work for me. So either they're using like magic acrylics or something. I don't really know how they did it. So you've probably seen what videos I'm talking about and tried it and been frustrated too. So I think it's just a matter of blending, just like anything else, So I'm just going to kind of blend here and we'll hope for the best. And we're going to go kind of in the middle of the brightest areas here for our second layer. So we've kind of laid out some colors and then we're kind of going back in now with a little bit brighter color here to add.
We got a black question.
Okay.
They want to know the difference between Mars and carbon black.
They're pretty similar. There's not that much difference. Carbon black's a little bit more shiny. That's about it. They're pretty similar in value and in tone. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead. This brush I'm finding is going to be way too big. I can't get it in here, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to. Let's go ahead and use this brush here. I'm going to switch to this brush. I'm going to get some of that black, gray here, and I'm going to try to blend out these edges a little bit. I'm just going to go back over this wet paint, blend through it, just like I would if I was doing a flower or any other kind of thing. Now I kind of messed that up. Get a little bit more black here, a little bit more of my blue. Okay, so, and you kind of have to know too with this, just kind of go into it realizing it may not look great in the first layer. It may not look great in the second layer. It may not look great in the fourth layer, but eventually we'll get it to where we want it to be. So it's a process. It's not like a science where we're just like you do ABC and it's done. With art, you just kind of have to experiment and see what works until it looks good. So you kind of figure out, just kind of know going in, if you sort of have that knowledge of, this may not look great at first. Don't get discouraged when you're in this ugly stage and you're like, nothing looks great. It's not working. I think a lot of people give up in these middle stages of painting when things are going to look a mess. They're just going to, and it doesn't matter how long you've been painting or who's doing it. You just have to get these layers on. It's just going to take time and layers to get it looking the way we want it to look. So we're getting closer. I want to make sure when I'm putting these on here that I'm blending out this bottom edge a little bit so that I have kind of a soft edge on the bottom as well as the top. This is going good. Here I'm going through this wet paint, so I've got some wet paint down here, and this is helping me get these layers on top looking better. So I'm going to get a little bit brighter color. So each time I do a new color, I'm adding a little bit more white to it so that I have a little bit more brightness. And then I'm going towards the middle of where I've just done. So and if we get too white, right? If we get it done and we're like, the value's good, but the color's wrong, well, we can always add more color to it. We can always go in and glaze a little bit of color onto it. So don't worry about that. I'm not too worried about the color as much as I am the values at this point and getting it looking blendy, kind of blended and pretty looking. So it's getting there. It's getting closer, at least. I like this color better than what I've got on my brush. I'm just going to get a little bit of that green, that fresh green there. And down here, we got some more of the light color right low. And it blends up. I'm pretty much dry brushing at this point right now because this color that I'm going onto is dry. What?
I crack myself up sometimes.
What you do?
I was just thinking that right now it looks like a reverse emoji of a certain type.
A what?
A reverse emoji. You got a white triangle shape looking there surrounded by brown.
Oh, right. Reverse poo emoji. Okay. Thanks for that.
You asked. That's all I'm saying. One day you will learn not to ask.
Not to ask what you're thinking.
Yeah, 30 some odd years into this, you're still asking, what are you thinking?
Okay, I'm going to leave that set because we're just adding to the mess here. And I definitely need some more of my dark values, but we've got some of the lighter values going on in here. So that's kind of what we needed to get on here. And then we'll add just a little bit more where I want the lightest colors to be. But it's starting to get a little sticky, so I don't want to try to blend into sticky paint because it'll just start lifting. So do a little bit up here.
And what would you say the difficulty level is when we're dealing with something?
It's going to be up there a little bit more difficult. I don't think it's going to be too terribly hard. The shapes are pretty easy, but there's a lot of blending. There's going to be a lot of blending and layering. So if that's something that you struggle with, this may be a challenge. Especially the sky. I think the sky is probably going to be the hardest part on this one.
So you're saying the sky's the limit?
Sky's the limit, yep.
That was a very weak laugh, but thank you anyways.
All right. I'm getting the burnt orange here, maybe some of the brown, and this cadmium red. Making a little bit brighter version of what we had here. This is dry now, so we can start adding to it. And I'm just going to actually kind of use the texture of this brush and just do like this. There's like grasses down in here, so I'm just going to kind of let that sort of indicate maybe some grassy type of stuff happening here. Adding a little bit of a highlight out from our fire. Just a little bit. And let's go ahead and use this color. It's kind of a deep red. That brown is kind of neutralizing it a little bit. I'm going to go over the top of my rocks a little bit. Just a little bit with this, and then just go ahead and fill in this rest of the area, the poop area here. Our triangle shape. And go ahead and go outside the boundaries of it to add kind of a glow outside the boundaries. And like that. There. Okay. Looks good. Let's go ahead and grab some brown black here, and I'm going to go ahead and do another layer of black in here. I did not clean my brush out, but it doesn't really matter. And I can go over the edge just a little bit. Right there. If I get a little bit of this red, I can kind of brush these two together. This brush is really good for this kind of blending where you're kind of just dry brushing. And really, I've brought this up too high. We want to keep it kind of flat. So our shadow does this kind of thing. So it's going to come down this way here. So I need to bring this down over here. I brought it too high right there. Going to go over the edge of that just a little bit, soften that up. This is just plain black here. And then once most of that color is out of my brush, and I can even wipe it real good to get most of it out. I've got fresh paint right here, so I'm just going to kind of brush over that a little bit and soften up that edge.
Okay, now that my chat's working again, somebody wanted to know, would an iridescent paint work for this guy?
I think so. Yeah, I would do that very last though. I wouldn't do it at this point. I would wait until this is all done and then just put a little bit of it on at the end. Okay, I'm going to need you to dry this for me, hon. While he's doing that, I'm going to try to clean these out really good. So with these Deerfoot stipplers, if we want to use it later, we need to make sure that it's dry. I might have to switch out my water too when we get to our yellows. We don't want to have a lot of this brown, black in the water when we do our bright fire colors. So this paint brush needs to be pretty dry to be usable. It's got to, and I'm pretty brutal with it. That it can take a beating. Actually, the more you abuse it, the better it gets because it flares out a little bit more. So these brushes can really take a beating. I like them a lot. I have the smaller version here too that we'll probably be using in the fire to do some sparks and things. But I'm going to go ahead and just use this time to clean out my brushes a little bit. I feel like I've got my little floaty thing here in my, no, it's down low. Okay. Okay, well, we got most of that out, but what I'm going to do is just really like load it up with a good amount of water there. and set it off to the side because I don't want this to dry out until I can clean it out really good. You don't want to let your paints dry in your brushes with acrylics because they will ruin your brush. And once it dries up in this silver part, this is the part where you really have to worry about because it can look clean in your water, like you can clean it out and you may think, okay, that looks clean. You know, it dyes these white brushes. The color will dye the brush. It's clean, but it just dyed the filaments or the fibers of the brush. But it looks clean right now. But if I take a wet paper towel and push down real hard, you can see how much color is still in that brush. So that's a good test when you're cleaning your brushes out. I always have a white paper towel or a white towel that I can test against so that you know if you've gotten all the paint out of there, because you never want to let it dry with any paint in that ferrule area, especially. Okay. These brushes are just dirty. Okay, so you can see it's definitely not where I want it to be yet. I'm going to spray this down. And I think I'm going to try glazing over the top of this a little bit. Maybe even using this brush here because it works really well down in here. You can see how well it got kind of that soft blend. So let's see what it does up in the sky. We can try it and see how it does for us. So I'm going to use a little bit of the black and blue, Phthalo blue. That was our base color for our sky, right? And I'm going to use a paper towel here and just to control the amount of paint that's on my brush here. And I'm going to brush it over. You see how it's going to tint. And that's what I meant by glazing. Glazing is just, and really this is more of a dry brush than a glaze, but it's when you're adding color in a thin layer, but allowing the under layers to show through. So that's what we do when we're glazing. If I add a little bit of the glazing medium to this, it will be even more transparent, and that will really, oh yeah, that's really pretty. So it kind of comes in right here. And this is where I said we could change the color really easily by glazing. And this is what I was talking about, because we could use any color that we wanted to here. If we wanted to make it more yellow, we could add a yellow glaze. In this case, we're using blue. It's adding a little bit of blue. I'm using a wet paper towel here just to kind of take off the parts that I don't want on here. This gives it a really kind of soft way of blending another color in to this. So let's go ahead and add it right in here. Really pretty. Okay, and then where I want it a little bit darker, I'm just going to get a little bit more color. And like up in here where I may want a second coat, I'm going to do that. And I need more glazing medium.
So for those who put on makeup,
yeah,
is it kind of like putting on makeup? Are you using like the same pressure and stuff on doing that technique you're just doing there?
Probably kind of like, well, you know, when you're blushing, you're probably using even less pressure than this. But yeah, you're kind of just dusting the canvas here with color.
And you're allowing, like you said earlier, the layers to build up. So a little bit at a time, not trying to like smash it all on at one
Exactly,
time.
Yeah. Especially with something like this, it's all kind of very soft and blendy. You don't want to try to get it all on one layer. It's just not going to work. I mean, unless you kind of use that magic technique that I saw where I don't really know how I still don't know how they did it exactly. But it was kind of wet on wet. So maybe if I went through here and did, I really don't know. I still, like I said, I tried it and it didn't really work for me. So I'm just going to stick with what I know. Okay, so going a little bit darker right in here. And it's really just a matter of going back and forth with these layers until you get it to where you like it. And that's really what You know, like I said, this is our, third layer on here now. Starting to get there. Starting to get closer to where we want it to be. A little bit of blue, controlling the amount of color going on with my paper towel. I can also wipe off if I get too much on an area. So there's nothing, you know, while it's wet, you can always adjust it while that paint's still wet. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. That's starting to look a little bit closer to where I wanted it to be. I'm going to try to get this clean enough to use my, probably need another paper towel. I'm going to use my green now on here and my white. And that phthalo blue-green shade is really pretty much the color that I'm seeing, so I'm just going to stick with it. So I'm going to wipe that off, mostly off my brush. And I'm going to go over here. And if I put a little bit of glazing medium in my paint, what'll happen is it'll go on a little bit smoother. So it won't leave as much of the canvas texture showing. It'll kind of dip into that canvas texture and it'll blend a little bit easier for me. So just adding a little bit of that glazing medium. And my previous layer is still just slightly wet. I'm going to bring it out here just a little bit. This is really very similar to what we're going to do with the fire too. It's really similar technique here. Wipe that off, get some glaze. I'm just going to go around the edges there. Kind of blend that in with a little bit of that glaze. And then I can always get a little bit of that dark color and go back over it too. Okay. It's looking pretty good. Getting closer to where I want it to be. Now I need to be careful not to have too much of that black in my brush when I add these next layers though, because it'll affect the color intensity, and I want it to be pretty bright. Okay, let me go over the edge here and bring this up just a little bit in this area. A little bit more of that green. There we go. This whole area is going to be trees. So we're just barely going to see a little bit of this sky kind of in this middle area here. And I'm going to use the edge of my brush here, kind of the tip of the brush, try to get some lines going in. More that brighter color. A little bit of glaze to help it kind of smooth on there. As I said, the glaze kind of just helps it go on a little bit more transparent, a little bit smoother.
Can you go over again the colors you put together to come up with that blue-green that you're doing right now?
This is the phthalo green with white. That's all it is, the phthalo green blue shade.
Okay.
If you don't have phthalo green blue shade, just add a little phthalo blue to your phthalo green yellow shade. Or whatever. Or add a little yellow to if you have phthalo blue.
And carry the one.
It's It's a bluish green though. It's got a little bit of a blue tint, blue leaning green.
You artists.
What?
You can't just be happy with one phthalo blue.
No.
You gotta have like 25 different shades.
Exactly. All right, I'm going to use a little bit of the blue now. I'm just going to use this kind of transition color here. Some glaze. Added the phthalo blue to that green there. Just going to use it in here, kind of around the edges. Pull those edges out a little bit. Add a little bit of the darker around the edges if I need to blend it out. This is looking pretty good, I think. I could probably do this as a whole lesson, honestly. There's a lot to it. Get a little bit more of the white and add that in here. A little bit more right in here. It's not too bad. All right, let's go ahead and use this brush, and we'll do some splatters. I'm going to use the Zinc White for my stars, and I've used the fluid Zinc White. So you always want to dip your toothbrush or your brush, whatever you're using to splatter, in water first and wet down your paint really well. It should be like a milk consistency, and that way it'll come off your brush really easily. Dab it on the paper towel once or twice if you need to, if you think you have too much. And I'm just going to use my thumb, point it where you want the paint to go. I hold it really close up in my fist so that it's pointing right straight down at the canvas. And we're just going to do some stars up there. We'll let that set and dry. And we may do some more on the sky, but for now, I'm just going to wipe off anything that I don't want down here. And if you get any that are too, too hard or like harsh or whatever in places that you don't want them, you can always use your paper towel and wipe them off too. So, okay, just gonna do a few more right in there. Pretty pretty. I like doing night skies. It's fun. Really happy with that. It may be a little bit heavier than I wanted, but I kind of have this sort of idea that I wanted to get. I'm looking at the reference photo though, and there is a much more distinct line. So I think I probably will do at least one more layer on here once this dries a little bit. So, but let's go ahead and start on our fire. I'm going to go ahead and grab my 3/8. Let's go ahead. Let's do the 1/4 inch angle brush here. And I'm going to start with my Indian yellow, some of my cadmium red, and maybe some of the burnt orange, burnt umber. Just want to kind of make a brownish, a little bit brighter than what we were using before. I'm going to start to map out some of the edges of the flames. Give it a second coat here in this middle area. And I need to make sure that I'm not going to be going up into this area right here that I want to add color to. This is actually dry enough that I think I'm going to go ahead and use. Let's use, what brush do I want to use? Let's go ahead and use this brush here. I'm going to use some glaze, some white, and some of that green. Try to get a little bit brighter. You laughing at? I don't know. Do I?
So, one of the things that in almost every one of your videos, people like to see things in either the pictures or your palette or something. And so now your emoji has now morphed into kind of a nose with a mustache kind of look right now.
Interesting. Oh, it does look like a mustache. So we need a couple eyes right up in here, and we're good.
And then we're done. We fooled all of you.
Love it. I'm using some Zinc White. It's fluid. It's going to make it a little bit easier to get this kind of translucent look that I'm going for in the sky here. And honestly, these Aurora Borealis are very, unique. There's all kinds of things going on here, so we can make it however we want to. It doesn't have to look exactly like the photograph. As long as we kind of get the same, the right colors and the right feel, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. As we got these edges blended out and we've got these beautiful greens and things in the sky, I think good. I'm gonna adding some streaks here with this brighter white just to kind of bring some of this up. Create this line that I'm seeing here a little bit more distinct. And you can see that I'm always kind of brushing it in the direction that I want that paint to go. So that it looks natural. If I tried to put it on, in this direction, maybe it would be going against the grain. So kind of using the natural flow of what I'm seeing in the canvas or in the reference photo to brush these on. This over here's got a little bit more yellow here. Okay, go ahead and use some of that yellowish color down here. Very pretty. Just using some of this yellow green, some of these other areas. Okay, now that I've got this pretty close to the brightness that I want to actually maybe add just a little bit more brightness right in here. And I made this a little bit wider than our reference photo, but that's okay. This area here a little bit wider. We can always go back in with the black if we wanted to, but I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to go ahead and let that set and get a little bit more of my phthalo green. I don't have any left. I honestly think this guy is as much of a focal point in this picture as the fire is. I saw this photo and I was like, yep, that's the, it's like one of those. Sometimes it's easy to decide on a painting if you want to paint it or not. Sometimes it takes me a while to figure out. This one was not one of those. This one was like, yep, that's, yes, 100%. Can I paint it tomorrow? No. Okay, I have to wait. All right. That's pretty much how this one was. Like, that looks fun. Fun challenge.
Was that the conversation going on?
That was the conversation going on in my head. Like, can you paint it tomorrow? No, you can't. Okay, well, can I paint it next month? Okay, well, hopefully. Probably, well, Campfire is definitely a summertime thing. I think the Aurora Borealis is more of a winter, fall type thing, but I don't care.
Well, I think people use fires in the wintertime to stay warm.
It's true. We're going to do it in the summer. Okay, so now I'm just glazing. I'm using varying degrees of this dark phthalo green. I'm going to add a little bit of the blue to it now. And you can see how it really tints these edges of the color. I'm just going to leave the middle parts, those really intense whites, and use this to glaze and darken some of the edges. Get a little bit of water, a little bit of paint. Glazing medium just helps it go on smoother. That's all it's doing. Just thinning out that paint so that if you just use water with heavy body acrylics, they could underbind. You really need to have some sort of a medium with acrylics, heavy body acrylics, when you're glazing. So even if it's not this glazing medium, you're going to want to use something that will thin out that paint, some sort of acrylic medium. Let me get a little bit of that. Yeah, it's dried. Get a little tiny bit of the black and the blue, because I'm getting farther out now, closer to the edges. Some water, a little bit of that glaze. So I'm going to come back in with that darker color and push back some of that lighter color that's in the middle right here. And now I can feel that it's getting sticky because I've just put that green on there. So I need to wait for that to dry if I wanted to do any more. But I think I can use it over here. I'm just going to kind of use the edge of the brush, sort of similar to what we were just doing with the highlight color. Kind of use the edge of the brush to create some streaks in here. And you can really manipulate the colors that you're seeing really easily with these glazes. Once we get this, you just have to get that light color on there first. You can use these glazes to push the color around.
So it seems like there's two focal points possibly in this painting between the fire and the Aurora Borealis.
Right.
So somebody wanted to know, have you done a painting where there's been like two distinct focal points, or? To be honest, I don't usually pay attention.
I don't really know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I tend to go for things that are fairly simplified. I don't like really complicated paintings myself. I just tend towards things that are a little bit more one subject kind of paintings, you know.
So if this was like a movie, then the Aurora Borealis would be the spiritual ancestors of the fire, because it looks like it's the same shape. Like they're having like a talk.
I think so. I think
Like-
so. That's probably good.
You must meet your quest destiny.
I like it.
Like the campfire is depressed and just defeated.
Mm-hmm.
And the ancestors are coming to visit them to tell them
to cheer them up.
Yes.
You're on the right track.
That's a good storyline.
I like it.
I should write some movies, I think.
Yeah, I would think that you were reading the books that I've been reading.
Reading. That's funny.
Well, if you're doing a movie, I'm pretty sure you have to read a little bit.
Well, no, because you write movies, you don't read them.
Okay. Pretty sure you have to read what you wrote, though,
really?
at some point.
I'm not that dumb.
Edit it. Are you going to just write it in one setting and never read it?
Well, that's what savants do.
Okay.
Is that the right word?
No, I know idiots in there somewhere, usually. Used with savants, just saying. So I don't know if that's... Are we on the right track there?
Yeah, I think you're more so on the track than I am.
Okay. So just using white, and this is zinc white here, so it's transparent. And the little touch of the phthalo green here. This is just kind of our final little layers, adding little streaks and softening up this I like it. I think it's pretty close to what I was hoping for, maybe. Hopefully. Let's add some trees on it. So I'm going to use the black and my fan brush. And while I'm doing this, will you get me some water, honey? Like fresh water, because I'm right after this, I'm going to start on the fire. So I won't need the water for this. Okay, let's see here. So our trees, I'm going to go ahead and kind of do the middle parts of the trees. They're coming up to about here, I think. Somewhere in here. So this is going to be our first major one right here. I'm going to go ahead and kind of tap in its center branch, and it actually does this kind of fisheye thing where these ones on the side are tilted in just slightly. So I'm going to go ahead and tilt them in just slightly. Another one right here. This one's a little bit lower. And there's a large one kind of like right there. A couple smaller ones here. Normally I would say don't do your trees at an angle, but in this case, this is kind of part of the effect of this painting. So go ahead and do it. Now, as you get to the middle, they're not going to be angled. So these ones in the middle are going to be straight up and down. And there's one right here. It's fairly low. And the one right in here that's fairly low. Right here. I'm just really kind of trying to map out I'm sort of drawing with this, the tree trunks here that I'm seeing. And kind of making sure that I've got the heights kind of where I want them to be. This one is going to be, so if I did a straight line from here down, this one's kind of almost even with this one here, and then this next one's just a little bit lower. And they kind of fill the gap right here. So one here, big ones, and then there's these little ones that fill in all down in here. Okay. All right, so there's our kind of trees. Let's see. I'm going to bring this one up just slightly so that it's almost the same height as that one there. And then we're just going to, thank you, honey. Okay. All right. It helps if the paint is fluid when you're using the fan brush. Just it comes off a little bit easier, and you kind of load it up fairly thick with paint. So, but it's still flat. So you can see, you know, it still needs to make a flat edge. But if you kind of scoop up a little bit of paint on there, it will lay down a little bit easier for you. You won't have to press as hard. It's when you're pressing hard is when you get these fat, weird shapes. I think I just got paint all over my face. I just touched my face. So I'm going to use the corner of the brush, just the edge here, start at the very top of the tree, and they're widening out, but they're not really widening out very much. So these are kind of very kind of narrow pine trees here. And I'm going to just fill in around and just pick out some branches that stick out a little bit more, and they don't have to be right out across from each other, so I can do one out this way and then kind of come down a little bit and then leave a space and do some out that way, so they don't have to like be these mirror images things that add. Patterns are one thing that we kind of you get into a rhythm of painting, and then you end up doing the same all the way down. So just kind of watch that while you're painting, not to do that, not to repeat yourself too much, because especially in nature, there's not a lot of repetition, you know, and there's a lot of variety in, you know, one tree branch is going to grow a little bit thicker or wider, and very rarely you're going to have something that's exactly perfectly symmetrical. And even with flowers and things, when I'm painting flowers, which are probably one of the more symmetrical things that you can paint, they still, each petal will have just a little bit of variety, a little bit of thick differences that make it distinct. So don't do these all same all the way across. So I did that whole tree with just one brush load, just about. So I think you can kind of, if you want to, you can kind of set your brush down and flick it. But mostly I'm just letting the brush do its thing. The fan brushes are really easy to use for this. They do a great job of these pine trees. Just mainly go slow and don't overload one little area with too much paint at one time. Very soft taps. And if you're finding like you're having to tap really hard to get the paint to come off, then you just need more, either more paint or thick or thinner paint. You need to thin your paint out so that you're not having to do these really hard brush strokes. This is very light tapping here that I'm doing to get that paint to come off. I'm using the edge of that brush and just letting it kind of flare out as I add paint, as I tap, I should say. Okay, and then just make sure that sort of where the trees come down, that we're just leaving just little bits of that sky showing through. But then right down here, we should have a good solid base where some of those all kind of come together, cluster together, and cover that night sky completely. Right, like that. Okay. And at the bottom, like if you've got some areas that are kind of open here, which I've got right there, I'm just going to kind of do some little sticks, kind of just brush up some little bushes and things. Okay, turning my brush sideways so that I'm getting thinner brush strokes there. I'm having to press down a little bit harder, so now I need to reload my brush.
So it's kind of like writing with a marker or something like that, where you just drag it across the paper lightly and it will leave a mark.
Right.
You don't have to really force it into the paper to do that. So you're just barely tapping and touching and let the canvas pull the paint off of the brush.
Right. And this brush is naturally going to kind of separate and give you kind of some texture as you tap. So it sort of does the work of the...
Almost like a calligraphy pen. Kind of like that little split in it so the ink runs out easily.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, that is just because of... And if you want to, you can tap to separate out those bristles a little bit more. So if I tap down, straight down into that paint, then I get a little bit wider separation here. Or maybe some of these bigger trees, but I'm not really using the full width of the brush with this, so I don't need to do that necessarily. I'm going to get a little bit more of this. Paint's starting to get a little thick or a little sticky, so I'm just going to get some fresh paint there. Made that one a little bit wider than it is in the picture. I wanted to bring this up just a little bit more, maybe in the middle, because we're going to put the fire over the top of these trees. So I want these ones to be pretty dark right in through here. So I'm going to bring this dark up just a little bit right there. Try not to cover over my fire too much. And some of these pine trees have their branches are kind of coming down, so I can kind of angle them down on either side of the tree limb here for this one. Maybe. And then kind of about halfway up, it starts to transition and they start to kind of go more straight to the side.
We got a question.
Okay.
The person would like to know, should they be worried about the bottom part of the trees going into the black? Meaning, should there be a line that follows to make sure like all the bases are at the same level?
No, they don't have to be on the same level, because these are, you can see it kind of meanders here. You just need to make sure that where the sky meets the ground, anywhere that the sky meets the ground, there's just a little bit of texture there. So there's a little bit of some sort of, you don't want any of this to show where we've left it the way it is right here, where it's kind of blended up into that. I want to go over that with, I'm going to either put a tree there or I'm going to put a little bit of bushes or something in there so that there's a little bit of this really dark over the top of all of this night sky. A good layer of, and I could go back through here like this and just kind of do some little bushes, but I usually tend to just do it at the very end. And yeah, it's better if you do it with the brush than try to do it before you do this layer, because then it tends to look manufactured. You end up having this solid line that doesn't look like a forest tree, you know. Like if it was a mountain, say, if it was a bare mountain, then you would have something like that. But this case, this is forest that is overlapping. So we're having, you know, thick trees, thick tree cover that is obscuring this hill here.
And you did something similar with the that Galaxy guitar that you painted.
Yeah, that was a much simplified version of some trees, but yeah, that was actually pretty fun. That's one of those projects that I thought would do better than one of those paintings. You know, I painted it like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Everybody's going to love this. And then it's like crickets.
Well, that's the same thing for the Van Gogh lemons. I thought that would really kill it.
And true. Yeah, none of my paintings of like masters, you know, like the Monet one, or the Monet Water Lilies Bridge did okay, but none of those have been all that popular. It's funny. So I never know. I've given up trying to figure out what people want to see in videos. Try not to let it stress me out. But I did want to say thank you to our patrons, because you guys are the ones that make it possible for us to be doing these videos as often as we do for free on YouTube. And especially the longer videos that I do occasionally on YouTube, you know, the 2 and 3 hour videos. Well, I pretty much do, like, hardly ever do anything less than 2 hours anymore. But it's nice that I can choose to do those, though, you know, and that's the thing that's nice about Patreon, is because you guys are kind of passing down the love, I call it, by supporting us on Patreon. With traceables and with our bonus video levels, and the ones that are in our Facebook group, that they get to vote, and they voted on this painting. And I was so glad that they liked it as much as I did. They voted on this image, I should say, to paint this month. So yay to them. Thank you. Getting to paint it, because they vote for their favorites. And sometimes I do my own thing, but most of the time they're right. So I've pretty much learned to listen to them, because if the patrons like it, then usually most people like it. I don't know. It's funny how that works. Sometimes my picker is off, so I think I want to paint something, and everybody's like, nah, and then I like, but I want to do it. And then nobody watches it. So it's actually really nice to have their help picking stuff. We do poll every month. So anyhow, but I'm just saying, you know, they, because of you guys that are so generous to us on Patreon, we are able to continue to do these live stream shows and do the more, you know, detailed stuff on our live streams that maybe don't get as many views as the, you know, 5-minute videos that people do that are, you know, not live, that are pre-recorded and that kind of thing, you know. So you guys kind of keep us doing these shows that we like to do. We love doing this for the live format, and because of your support, we can do that. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's approaching, we'll probably past 2,800 supporters this month.
Yeah, we did last month, so I don't know if we got back up to it this month.
We're almost there again, so it is just...
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
An amazing blessing, for sure.
Yeah, I know, and I wish I knew all your names by heart and could thank you each individually. I try to say it as many times as I can, just how much we appreciate you. those who support us on Patreon. It's pretty amazing. Y'all are the best.
I know you could buy a cup of Starbucks coffee, but you decide to invest in art, so we appreciate it.
And invest in, other people's art journey too. You're not just investing in your own art journey, you're also helping others that can't afford to do lives, or can't afford to maybe go and do classes somewhere locally, but they can watch a live, free video or whatever and paint at home. So y'all are.
And this is a good time in our history to be painting at home.
It is. It really is. We've seen a big upswing in people painting and in our groups, and a lot of people contacting us and saying how that the painting is really helping them through stressful times right now. So I definitely can see that. I definitely think that it helps me. I know it does. I know it's helped me for many years deal with stress, and art takes you out of your everyday life. It's reason why they use it for therapy and stuff, because when you kind of enter into this and you really get into it, you're so focused. You have to focus on what you're doing, and you're not able to think about all the stress in the world, and you can take a break from it for a little while and just do something kind of enjoyable, hopefully enjoyable. All right, so there we go. There's our night sky there, our pine trees. And then I just want to go through here and just pull down to blend in any thick areas that I'm seeing in the paint along this edge, so that I don't have any gloppy paint, but I think that's pretty close to where I want it to be. And I can always bring this. I might bring that up just a little bit in the middle there, just slightly. Let's see. Which one do I want to do? That one. Maybe bring this one up just a little bit. That out a little bit, and then maybe bring this. Let's bring this guy up. Okay, there we go. Got a good up and down here. Let's bring this one up a little higher too. Yeah, so checking that. It's got a good bowl shape. It actually kind of continues down here to about right about here, and then it sharply kind of comes up this way. So it's not exactly what's in the photograph, but we got it close. All right, let's work on our fire here. Oh my goodness, look what I did. I left that brush drying with paint in it. I know. Hopefully did not. That's not good. Okay. I think it's all right. All right, so I lost all that. I'm going to go ahead and scrape all of this off. Give myself a clean working area. Oops, I spray it with water first. This is just a glass palette, so it comes clean real easily. What time is it?
And you can find the palette is in. There's a link in the Amazon store below this video, and also you can find it in the Blick link too. It's the Posh New Wave glass palette. Man, you're making a lot of banging noise over there.
Sorry.
I'm having to turn down your microphone.
I
think you're doing it on purpose while I'm talking. You're like, oh, is he talking?
Bang, bang, bang,
Oh.
bang, bang.
Can't hear you.
Okay, I need to clean off my my hair covered with stuff here. And the reason I clean my hands is because acrylics stick to one another. So if I touched any part of this painting with this black that's on my hand, it would come off my hand and stick to the paint. And, we don't want that to happen. So that's why you never set two acrylic paintings face to face, because they will stick to each other. I've had that happen before I realized that that was a thing. So, and that's not fun. Okay, let's paint some fire. Let's see how these paints are still fairly moist, so we'll go ahead and work with them. Got the cadmium red, burnt, and then burnt orange here, making a really pretty glow red for our flames, and maybe add a little bit of the brown to tone it down so that it's kind of a duller color here. We'll both be using probably both of those colors. Let's go ahead and use this more brown version. And I'm going to start to I'm just going to use this brush and start to use the very tip of it to draw in over the top. And you can barely see it because this color is kind of thinned out a little bit. Got a little bit of glazing medium with this, but it's also going over the black, so that black will tone down the color a little bit for us. And I'm going to go ahead and bring it up a couple other places. I'm going to bring it up here just a little bit, right there, so it comes up a little higher than what is in our photograph. And what we're doing is kind of creating the background for the brighter areas that we're going to be putting in later. But this color is kind of that glow that's sort of around the outside of it. It gives it that kind of smoky haze. I'm going to get a little bit of that brighter version here. Start adding some of that and add it sort of towards the middle of where we've got these flames going. So this is kind of the smoky outer areas, and be surprised at how easy this actually looks. Fairly complicated, but there is actually really not too bad. If you've watched any of my candle videos about doing flames and things, I don't think you need to be intimidated by it. It's actually pretty straightforward as long as you get this kind of glow thing happening around the edges, these kind of soft fuzzy edges. That's what's going to make it look bright once we put this bright glow on the inside of our fire. That's the key. It's this smoky stuff around the outside here. Okay, let's bring some out a bit farther over here. And then I'm going to get some of this black and brown here and add it to this. I'm going to use it on the rock here, but I'm going to leave a little bit of that glow around the sides of it. And I'm not going to be super detailed with this. I'm going to keep it fairly hazy here. So I'm just kind of, once I put the color down, I'm kind of brushing this out along that outside edges just a little bit. So this is all kind of nebulous, sort of. I may even do some little grass silhouettes here. Use the edge of my brush. Maybe do a little bit of straight lines around the bottom here. See that? Creating that grassy look. Okay. So now we're going to go with a little bit more yellow. We're just going to kind of work in towards the middle now and get some more yellow. So I'm going to use the same color and add some of the Indian Hue. That's going to be our gold color. This will be maybe a little bit of white because that Indian Hue is very transparent. So the white will just make it a little bit more opaque, a little cover over this darker color a little bit more. So I'm going to make kind of two versions of it, a little bit more of an orange version here and a little bit more of the yellow version there. We'll be using both of these colors. And so now I'm going to start to really look at, okay, what am I seeing in the fire? So I'm seeing a log right in here. So I'm going to try to kind of just use the edge of my brush and define that a little bit. And then there's another log like right in here, kind of. And there's one that kind of comes up here. Let me see, but it's so high up here. I kind of don't want that log to go that high. So I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. We can do that. It's our painting. And maybe let's put another kind of log right in there. Okay. And then I'm going to use a little bit more and start to define some of these flickering flames and keep them very light at first. So we don't want to go straight into our super dark, bright colors. We're going to be gradually adding intensity to our colors here, and that's what's going to give us that smoky glow look. So I'm going to start to do some just wiggly lines, really. That's all I'm doing. I'm going to maybe define some of these a little bit more, do some wiggly lines that connect all the way up, and then maybe break off, do some zigzags. There's some areas like right in here that's more solid, so I'm going to get some more of the, maybe even get some of the brighter yellow. And start to add a little bit of that. But I really need to just go in steps, though. I'm going to jump into the fun part. Need to stay on track.
Okay, first you have to eat your vegetables.
I know.
Then you can have the ice cream.
Okay. All right, so let's do the underlayers first. All right. Dang it. Okay.
Not saying that vegetables aren't good, but
they are. I had a yummy salad yesterday that was all from fresh vegetables from our garden. It was pretty amazing. Okay, so taking this brighter red, orange here and just touching along the tops of these rocks where they're kind of facing the fire, and then defining a couple of them back here that are in the background too. There's some, obviously we're seeing through some of the ones in the back. Okay. It's really fun. Okay, let's go ahead and bring it up here. Let's let it dance around here. Maybe zigzag a little bit, and then maybe do a couple little areas up high. There. So we're bringing it up into the sky here. And if you get it up here and you're like, nope, you can always wipe it off, or you can even use your paper towel, like a damp paper towel or your finger. And we can dab it off a little bit if it's a little too obvious. Like I kind of want to, I'd rather go less is more with this, go thinner layers build them up gradually rather than do it all at once. And that way it'll give it that kind of soft, fuzzy look that we're going for, the transparent glow of the fire. If you try to put it on too thickly, it's not gonna look realistic. Okay, there we go. Oh, it's gonna be so awesome. I can't wait. It's gonna be the best part. Okay, wait for it. Sorry. Letting my inner dialogue come out there. But I love painting. So fun.
Again, I haven't actually put makeup on myself, but it's by watching you many years. You don't go in and just like put one big hard blob of makeup on your cheek and you're done.
Right.
You put on a little bit and then you dust on a little bit more and just layer it and blend it in.
Right. Well, it's more like eyeshadow than, but kind of like you do with eyeshadow.
Wow, are you woman-splaining me?
I am woman-splaining because I don't put that much blush on. In fact, I don't have to put on blush because I've got rosacea, so I've got my own built-in blush.
But anyways, just trying to get people understand that, painting is very similar to activities they already do probably.
Yes. Okay, so transparent, using some of the glaze here with some of this yellow. I have this may be a little bit bright. I don't know. We'll see. Basically, what I'm wanting to do is just gradually step up closer to yellow each time I do this. And so we started with the kind of brownish orange, and then we're moving to the more saturated colors and more brighter colors. I know my English. And I'm going to target these areas that I've already done and put this color in the middle area. That's what's going to make it look like it's shining through. And this yellow does not have to touch the whole everything. Like I'm leaving some of this other color showing through. Okay, so just bringing up some of that flame up the sides a little bit here. And I need to find those logs, right? And define those a little bit again. So I'm going to find my logs, bring some of that yellow on top of them. And they're a little bit darker, so I'm going to actually get a little bit of this brown burnt umber color, get into that orange color here, and kind of define that front edge of some of those logs. Okay. Just kind of have some dark areas in there for the fire to really pop off of. Okay. Get some more of that Indian yellow, some white. Look how pretty that color is. Spraying my palette just helps it keep wet here. Keep the paints moist. Okay, and then grabbing some white here and bringing it over here. So I've got some yellow and then I've got some bright white. So I'm going to use the bright white and sort of define some of these areas where I'm seeing and it's got the yellow in it. So right down here, closest to the bottom is where we're going to see the most intense white, bright areas. Get some more of the yellow. And I'm putting it on kind of thick, so I need to get a little bit less on my brush here so I'm getting softer edges because I'm getting these solid lines, which I don't really want. So I'm going back in with some glaze here and just kind of brushing around these and blending them out, tapping around them a little bit to soften them up. Okay. So these are those little hot spots that you're seeing in the fire that burning the brightest, most intense colors, most intense whites. Okay, and then let's use this glaze with this color. Maybe get some of the yellow. Bring it up a little higher. I feel like there's a little bit of red in there. And I'm just going to use this tip of this brush and kind of draw in some of these sparks that I'm seeing come out around. And we need to get some of that transition color. So if you feel like you're seeing an area where it's just really obvious that you've got color over the top, then just find a transition color that sort of gaps the two colors and then put that in there to help with that. And it'll kind of help smooth over that transition between those two colors. There's a lot of these little areas that are leaping out at us, creating these little wispies. So I'm just going to use the tip of my brush and kind of draw out some little trailing smoky things happening. It's really fun, really fun. I'm weird. Sorry. I get into it. Getting more of this intense yellow color in the middle here. Let's get some more of that Indian yellow and yellow, cadmium yellow medium or light. I mean, I was thinking I could have used cadmium yellow medium, which is more of an orangey yellow. It's got more orange than the cadmium yellow light, but cadmium yellow light has a brighter intensity, I think. And so it just kind of, I think, works better for this. Really, either one would work though. So if you don't have the cadmium yellow light, you could use the medium instead. I'm going to kind of lightly go over this area here. This whole area here is kind of hazy with yellow. And then I want some of this brighter yellow. Maybe get some of the cadmium yellow light here. And use the tip of my brush and just draw in some little zigzag lines here. And always go in the middle of where I've already got some of these colors so that I can show that transition. Make sure you're not covering too much up at one time. So leave a little bit. Your underlayers. And down in here, there's just all these little kind of sparks and things going in different directions. So you can kind of do some of that. There's some really bright area right here that kind of flattens out. Branches off. Again, kind of wipe off most of that. Kind of use that to create some of this. Didn't like that. Catch it while it's still wet. You can just wipe it right off. Let's grab some of this white here. Put it right down in here. There's this really intense area of bright white right here. And there's some little scattered areas right in here. And really, it's not pure white, but we'll probably glaze over that. But I just wanted to get it covered. So there's that log that's right there. So let me get some of that burnt orange, a little bit of yellow, and yellow. Get that log back in there. Right in there. Do another layer of highlight on those rocks in front there. Some of the brown. Okay. Cashmere? What'd she do?
She cut my hair.
Oh.
Hey, come on.
Trying to get up on your chair and she got her foot caught. Okay, using the cadmium yellow light now by itself. Just alone. This is where we can go over that white and see how it will brighten that area up. Bring some color around that log there. Define it a little bit better. Okay, let's go ahead and do some sparks up in here. So I'm going to use this brush here and get some of the cadmium red and yellow, maybe a little bit of that burnt orange, and a little bit more of the yellow, maybe a tiny bit of white. tap that in. I can wipe most of it on my brush and just kind of tap that to separate out those bristles a little bit. And then kind of tap in some the fire that's kind of sparking up the sides here. You can see this, how they kind of come off as the heat hits them. They kind of just zigzag out, and then they sort of do these serpentine shapes. This other one's probably a little bit better. So some of them are kind of lines. I may want to do some lines. If I do the lines, I can just kind of pull. Tap a few over in the middle area here. Okay. I don't know. I may have done better to. I'm kind of not liking that I'm obscuring that tree line so much. Hi, you coming over? You want to see what I'm doing? Okay. Come. Come here. You want to see? Cashmere is going to be in for a rude awakening when that puppy arrives. She is not going to like it. You want to rub on my brush? Okay. What you doing? Right. Oh, she jumped over. Back over to Dad. Okay, so I'm going to use this and just do some little bright yellow dabs here. I'm going to find the... I feel like this needs to be defined a little bit better, so I'm going to... get some of this yellow orange. Kind of bringing up these little flicks of flames in areas where they're not necessarily in the photograph. So that's up to you. You can leave it a little bit more compact if you want, but I'm just kind of bringing them out a little bit. As long as I keep them in these areas where I've got that background glow. Don't want to lose that, so we get a little bit of that burnt orange with my red, some of my glaze, and just go back in here to some of these areas where I'm doing this yellow up high here and do some red. Too, so it's not just yellow. Okay. some of the yellow. Find out some of these shapes a little bit again. It's just kind of going back and forth. Really, you can stop at any point where you're happy with it.
Our friend Dave said that the only way to make this fire warmer is to give it a second coat.
Dad jokes by Dave. Love it.
Dad art jokes by Dave.
I like it. It's awesome. Okay. So I feel like we don't have any logs. And that's because I kind of really took them out. So I think what I'm going to do, I really like the logs in this one where you've got this really dark shape kind of coming out in front. So I think I'm going to do that on here. I feel like we can get away with it. Excuse me. So I'm going to get some black and brown here. Need some more black. And some of that cadmium red. All right, I'm going to find an area here. Whew, this is dangerous. Let's do it. I'm going to put it in right in here. Where am I putting it? Right in here. I'm talking to myself. I'm talking myself into this. Okay, I'm going to do it right there. Bring it down into that dark area. Right there. And then we'll do some of this. Darken that one up. And this one here. Okay. This is that log. This one's already in here. It's kind of down in here. Sort of lost its color. Let's get some of the red now. And I'm going to go around this side of this log with the red. And then getting some of the yellow with the red. A little bit of the brown.
Did you use a black in that mix?
I did.
Which black?
The carbon black. It's the only black I've got.
And that's the right answer. Good job.
Okay. Getting a little bit of that blue. I'm adding it to that orange. Seeing just a slight bit of blue in this one. Now our photograph doesn't have blue, but I see this other one that I'm using does, so I'm going to use a little bit of it. I like it. So I use a little bit of that blue with that red. Just down in here, maybe a little tiny bit of white just to make it show up. Blue. Use some of that on our logs. Okay, so we're going to have to, for sure, like define these areas around the logs a little bit better and add bit of the burnt umber there. I think I want to just dirty up this area around the bottom of the fire a little bit. Just adding some of this dark color, almost like a sooty glaze over some of this. Maybe in our rocks. Let's use this blue in our rock a little bit. Use the black. Define out the edges of our rocks a little bit. Okay. And get some of this orangey yellow color here. Or yellow, because we're down at the base of the logs, right? Let's add little highlights to our logs here. Just along the top. And then making sure that these fire areas kind of overlap it a little bit. So get a little bit of the white and the yellow. Bring it up around over the rock or the log a little bit. This one's right in here. Okay, that's better. See, now we've got a little bit of the dark in there. I think that works a little bit better. How you doing, hun? Hanging in there?
Of course. I'm happy I had my sandwich before the show started.
I know it's late for it's a long one for a Tuesday, but yep. I'm almost done.
That's okay. You're giving me Saturdays off, so I'm all right with that.
True. Using the Indian yellow, little tiny bit of the cadmium yellow. But I'm just going to go in here and add some more of these wispies that come out the sides. And I'm going to bring this one out a little bit more kind of wild, because right now I've got it kind of this cone shape. I don't want it to be so tidy. I want these to be popping out. A little unruly. Not too same. Bringing some of that white back in here, like around the log. That burnt orange. Mix that with the yellow. Tap in. A little bit of yellow. There's a cadmium yellow here. And I'm just going to kind of trail it through, try to connect up some of these areas where yeah, that's good. Okay. Really, it may take 2 or 3 coats or more to get the brightness that we need in some of these areas. But it's better to just kind of do it slowly because I want to make it look unreal. You know, put it on too thick too soon. It just doesn't look quite right. But I think we're getting it there. I think getting that bright white and my yellow. Got a little bit of the reds there. So I'm going to try to. I'm looking at my brightest areas of my fire up in here. Brightest areas being right down in here. But as I go up, they're going to get a little bit more yellow. Try and blend that out a little bit. Add that little haze over the top of that area where we've got all those colors. You get some of the red and use that too. This whole area here is pretty smoky, so it's going to have this haze. Mm-hmm. Get some Indian yellow here. Did a bit more of that red. And maybe a little bit of brown. Just so it's a little more neutral tone. Kind of feel like I got a little solid in through there. So then all I need to do really for that, if I did, which I'm painting in areas that are not in our original photograph, so that's why I'm kind of looking at multiple references. So I'm going to try to define just a little bit of a bright spot so that it leads the eye up and around. I think that'll do it. Okay. Let me see some white over here that I'm not doing. So I'm going to connect this up. There's like an area here that kind of comes out like this and around over here. Do that. And there's that yellow glow too. Let's use this glazing medium some more. That's that log right there, so pretty much covered it up again. But that's better, I think. Got a little bit of brighter hot spot down here. And I feel like it could use a little bit more of that reddish color just in general. So I'm going to get some more of that cadmium red and quinacridone burnt orange. For my glazing medium. Kind of gone beyond my original boundaries with the red glow with my colors, right? So I need to put that red glow back in. So I'm just going to come around the outside of this fire and just add some of that red glow out with the glaze. I want it right in here for sure. Rub it in if I need to, but look at, okay, so glazed side, non-glazed side. See how that looks a little bit better, a little bit more natural. So we're definitely going to do that on this side too. Like it. I like what it's doing. And that really is what we were kind of aiming for at first. I just kept moving my yellow out farther and farther so that I lost that original outline that we had of the orange, but not a big deal. We'll just put it back in. That's much better. Much, much better. Okay, now it's looking a little bit more natural, I think. I'm going to put some brighter hot spots of this in, even in the middle of our file. Just wherever I see that I need a little bit of red. And up towards the top, there's not so much of this, so I don't need to do the glow. It's mainly down here where close to the hottest part of the floor. And I'm just going to glaze over those rocks right there too. Just a little bit. Bring that out. Like that. Okay. Very pretty. So let's splatter a little bit. We'll be done. Get some yellow. Get some of both of the yellows there. Maybe a little tiny bit of the orange in my white. That's Zinc White because I'm pretty much out of my other white. And water. Need lots of water. See if I can get in that regular white. There we go. Okay. If you don't want this up in the sky, you can cover the parts where you don't want it, but I'm going to angle it just a little bit so that these splatters go upward. See how that worked? And I'm doing like this because I don't want it to go too far, so just kind of catching the stray. Fun. Love it. Okay, I touched over here with my side of my hand that had paint on it. Got some stuff there, and I got some down here, but I don't mind that, so I'm gonna leave it. I don't hate that. So let me get some white now. Try to get a little bit brighter. Again, go at an angle. So instead of pointing it straight down at the canvas like I would if I wanted straight dots, I'm going to angle it just a little bit, and it's going to go wherever the tip of this is pointing. So if I've got it angled up, it's going to, in fact, I can tilt this down a little bit. Probably an easier way of doing it. Still trying to do this weird angle with my hand. Let's move the canvas. Dort. Genius. Okay, here we go. See that? Nice. Nice, nice. Little crackling fire for July, 4th of July. We had one going on in our backyard the other day, just like this. Yeah, let me see. Ooh, okay. So there we go. There's our little logs. Dark red, light red on there, leaving a little bit of the dark showing the light color kind of in the middle there. Again there, a little bit there. We kind of lost him to the flames over here. That's all right. And there's a little bit of one down here. But I think we left not 100% happy with the logs, but it is what it is at this point. So we're just going to leave it. I'm happy with the flames though. I'm pretty happy. I did get a little solid with some of them, so I probably could have gone a little bit softer with some of the highlights, but I think it's overall I like it. So it's good for a Tuesday night 2-hour painting, especially considering that the Aurora Borealis guy took a whole full hour. So yeah, I like it. Kind of fun. Hope you try it. Let me see. One more thing I'm going to do before we end is add just a few little grasses, because there's some of these little highlighted grasses in the foreground. So I'm just going to use some of this. Just a kind of a small round here, my number 1 round, and get some of this reddish brown color that we were using down here, right? Maybe go just a little bit lighter with some of this white in it. and do some grasses just over the top of the rocks. Now, these should blend in enough to the bottom, so they should be dark enough that you're not like seeing some weird grass coming out of nowhere, you know. So make sure that they kind of make sense where you're placing them, and that your color is close enough to what you've got going on down there that they look good. All right. Love this painting. So fun. Hope you try it. No, I didn't. I need to get a smaller brush to do that. I'm going to dump all these in the water so they get to soaking before we wash them. Let's see. I need a little small round. There we go. 8 aught. I'm going to go ahead and use this color that we were using for our splatters here, this yellow. Slide it down here, and I always want to come up about a 1/4 inch from the bottom. I hold the brush. Make sure when you're using a liner brush, you use this fluid paint. So that's why I'm going for this paint that we used for our splatter, because it was already really watered down. You can't do this with use a liner brush with thick paint. Will not work. Get a little bit of red. And you want to come up just a little bit from the bottom so that your signature will show if you sign it. I'm going to do it on this side so that it's not so obvious. Gotta come up about a 1/4 inch. This brush is not. Good enough. If you don't have fluid paint, what happens is it won't come off. And then you'll end up pressing down harder to get the paint to come off. And then you'll end up with a super thick line. So if you keep your paints thinned out, you'll get much thinner lines with your liner brush. And really at this point we could, well, before we did our splatters, we could have done a little bit brighter on my Aurora Borealis, but I think for the most part I like it. So I'm going to stop and say thanks for watching. Hope you guys try it. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel. Come back. We're going to be back next Tuesday night. We're taking our Saturdays off this summer. So first time ever since we started doing live shows. So it's been quite interesting. We enjoyed our first Saturday at home with our son. Came over for 4th of July. So that was awesome. And we're going to see him again next weekend. So be fun. So appreciate you guys on Patreon that allow us to do this kind of stuff. So without you guys, we wouldn't be able to take these kind of breaks and do all the fun videos that we want to do. So again, thank you to them. If you want to join our Patreon crew, you can join at patreon.com/AngelaFineArt. There's traceables for this project and about, 300 other videos at least. So for $2 a month, you get unlimited traceables downloads. Pretty good deal. And then we have also got for $5 level, we've got bonus videos where we do some really cool in-depth paintings. And then for the $10 level, we do even more in-depth paintings. So you get all of that plus the Facebook group where we do critiques and they do polls and just do more kind of in-depth stuff and another weekly. They get their own weekly bonus or weekly video that they do, that I do live stream just for them. So where we worked on a project all month long. So we're not meeting this month or this week, but we will be back next week. So we've got 5 Thursdays in this month. So I'm taking 1 Thursday off. Just cause.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much. And we will see you next time. Bye.